All right, Colin Barnicle directed the comeback, an incredible look back at the 2004 championship. Colin joins us now. Colin, how you doing?
I'm doing great. It's a good day.
Yeah. I'll tell you what. I tweeted out a preview of the thing, and I immediately got some Yankee fan replying, "Yeah, it's 20 years ago. Nobody cares." I was like, "Really? A Yankee fan is telling me not to pay attention to history?" So it's still triggering for a lot of people. Congratulations on that.
Yeah, and it's, one of the things which is horrifying, we had to go back through it is, and Yankee fans are right, it's not a rivalry, at the beginning of 2003, 2004. You can't lose for 85 years and then 86 years straight, and they've won 26, and we have a zero there. Like if the Celtics last night had gone, on a 26-0 run, nobody would be like, "Oh, this is a rivalry with the Knicks." Like it's just it doesn't happen. So anybody who wins 26-0, they have the right to say it's not a rivalry, and that's kind of like one of those things where it's like it bleeds into the bitterness and the feeling like you're the middle child of in the Yankees or the older brother who keeps pushing you back. And it did create some sort of animosity, not only with the players, but with the baseball operations and the ownership, which kind of like fueled them forward.
Yeah, it was the hammer and the nail, right? The nail didn't have a rivalry with
Yeah,
the hammer. It just got hit by the
yeah,
hammer over and over. And that was the history of this. You
yeah,
mentioned generations, and I always tell a story when in '86 I had just started working in a small market in upstate New York, and tried to call my family with the rotary phone with two strikes when the Red Sox were one strike away from winning the World Series in Game 6, and three times they were one strike away. Three times I dialed all the numbers except for one, and then hung up. Right, never made the call, and then they lost Buckner, and I had to go run out and be on TV in upstate New York. So when it happens in '04, I'm running out to the Nesson studio, and I've got my flip phone now, and I'm calling my family, the call we haven't had, right, that we
yeah,
talked about since '86. And I hang up, and my wife calls me with our 8-year-old son. So, you got a guy in his 80s, a guy in his 40s, and a guy in his who's eight. Three generations in my family. None of us had ever seen a World Series win. And that was it, right? I mean, that was people. 20 years ago, it's easy to forget. Like church bells rang. Red Sox caps were hung on gravestones. Like now I can
yeah.
die in peace was a real thing people thought.
Yeah, my dad, I remember my dad was he was at the 75 game 7 when Tony Perez hit the home run off Bill Spaceman Lee. And I don't think he
Yeah,
ever
the eephus
forgave.
pitch.
Yeah, the eephus pitch. He never forgave him for that. And then he was at the 78 game. He was at the Buckner game in '86. We started to tell him that maybe he's the problem. He was at the '86 game, and then in 2003 when we lost, my little brother Tim was there, and he was only 10 at the time, and he collapsed crying after Boone rounded the bases. And my dad looked down at him and said, "I can't believe I did this to you." Like he had given him something to love completely that didn't love him back. Now, Tim didn't have to wait that long. He only had to wait till he was 11. So, but my dad, he had to wait 50 years on this. And like, I think my dad always says, like, "Oh, God, what could I have been if I just didn't go to Fenway Park for like 6 hours almost every day in the summer?"
Yeah, well, we'd probably all be better adjusted, but what fun would that be? Herb Brooks, right? The U.S. hockey coach said we play him 10
Yeah.
times, we might lose nine, but not tonight. Like that's how it felt. It just felt once they won Game 4. When you started going back through it, were you right back there? Were you young Colin Barnicle watching these games all over again?
Yeah, it was actually horrifying going through footage. Sometimes I would catch myself in the footage, and it wasn't just during the playoffs. It was like regular season September game, and it's like noon, and I'm there, and I'm like, I'm definitely in high school during this period. Like, why? It's like a Tuesday. I should probably be in school. But yeah, you're right back in it. And, I remember Theo told us a story. He was walking around New York before that game 7 because he couldn't go to sleep, before 2004. He couldn't go to sleep, and he called Sam Kennedy to try to get Mike Eruzione's number and from the 1980 team, and he got it, and he put Mike Eruzione on with some of the Red Sox players before that Game 7. And, Keith Folk, huge hockey fan. It was like a big thing for a lot of those. Some of those guys were like, who's this? But a lot of those guys were like, this is unbelievable. This is the movie, right? And they're like, well, it's not only a movie, but it actually happened in real life too.
This is a true story. So after, we're doing the pregame show, Game 4 in 2004, and we're on the street, Jersey Street, Yawkey Way then, and it's it's dead, right? I mean, the Patriots had a 4:00 game. Everyone's in the bars watching the Patriots that day. Nobody's coming out. Scalpers can't get rid of the tickets, and we're wrapping up the show. I think it was like a 5:00 game or something. It was a weird time. Maybe it was that. No, I guess that was the night game. The next day was the other one. Anyway, we're wrapping up the show, and I look out of the corner of my eye, and walking by off stage is Sean Astin, the actor, who was Rudy, right? And we're just about to wrap it up, and I hit mute, and I yell over to him. I was like, hey, Sean Astin. He looks up at me. He's like, you want to come up? He's like, yeah. So we got him to come up, and he gives the Rudy speech, and the crowd's going crazy around. What crowd there is, right? It's like 40 degenerates hanging around our stage. But it was great because that was before they had won a game, and it was just that whole, that was who we were then. It's so different now. I mean, it really is. It's great that this is the Boston age of sports, right? The golden age of Boston sports. And you got Celtics just hung a banner and they win all the time. But back then, the whole thing about believing was that you had no reason to think it was ever going to come out well. But you still believe this might be the year.
Yeah, I remember being at Game 3, 2004, when we lost 19-8, and we were there in the ninth inning, and it was very depressing, and there was nobody in the stands, and this drunk guy had come down matriculated down from the bleachers, and he was sitting behind us, and he just started to yell out, "Are you ready for the greatest comeback in history?" And everybody was like, dude, just stop talking. Just stop it. And I hope that guy went out and bought a lottery ticket or something. We tried to find him, actually. We went through all the footage to see if we could hear him yelling because it was so quiet in the stadium in the ninth inning. And we were like, we got to find this guy. And we never could. But I hope he's a millionaire now and won the lotto.
See, now the other side of that is, and rest his soul, Game 4, the Red Sox win, and we're running into the studio, right? And I'm with Jerry Remy. And I'll never forget Jerry's reaction is, they're not going to win 4 in a row. Can't we just get on with it? Why are they extending our misery? Right? That was how a lot of us felt after the first. It was the game, Game 5, when you won Game 5, and now it was going back to New York. I remember that was sort of when we're like, all right, wait a minute now. But that first win, you were like, oh, come on. They're just finding another way. It was Lucy getting ready to pull the football away from Charlie Brown again, right? They were just always finding a way to break your heart.